The empty void of space stretched endlessly before Jack Miller's cargo ship, the Star Wanderer. His vessel was small, practical, and most importantly, paid the bills. The darkness of space was broken only by the distant stars and the soft blue glow of his ship's engines. "Warning, unusual energy signature detected," announced his ship's computer. Source: coordinates 227x885. Jack rubbed his tired eyes and sat up straight in his pilot's chair. He wasn't supposed to stop. His delivery of machine parts to Colony 7 was already running late. But something about the energy reading caught his attention. "Show me the scan results," he commanded. The screen lit up with data streams, showing a fading power signature typical of a damaged ship. "Probability of survivors: 12%, the computer stated. Jack's hands tightened on the controls. He knew what the company regulations said about unauthorized detours, but he also knew what his conscience demanded: plot a course to those coordinates. As the Star Wanderer changed direction, Jack prepared his emergency medical kit and rescue gear. His heart beat faster when he saw the wreckage. It was unlike any ship he'd ever seen. The sleek, silver vessel was clearly of alien design, its hull decorated with strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly. "Warning: ship design matches Imperial registry. Access forbidden to non-Imperial personnel," the computer announced. "Override safety protocols," Jack ordered. Someone could be dying in there. Using his ship's magnetic clamps, he managed to secure a connection to the damaged vessel. The airlock hissed as he stepped through, his boots making hollow sounds against the metal floor. The emergency lights cast eerie shadows through the smoke-filled corridors. "Hello," he called out, his voice muffled by his helmet. "Anyone alive in here?" The ship's interior was a maze of twisted metal and broken technology. Jack moved carefully, checking each room until he reached what appeared to be the main chamber. There, surrounded by dead control panels and broken screens, stood a single stasis pod. Its surface was frosted over, but he could make out a figure inside. The pod's power level was critical. Only minutes of life support remained. "Computer, scan for life signs," Jack commanded through his suit's communicator. "One life form detected. Critical condition. Warning: pod occupant matches Imperial Royal biosignature. Interference with Imperial property is punishable by death." Jack's hands hovered over the pod's controls. Opening it could kill him, either from Imperial law or if he did something wrong. Leaving meant certain death for whoever was inside. He took a deep breath and began the emergency release sequence. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. Inside lay a young woman with pale silver skin and delicate features that marked her as definitely not human. Her elaborate dress, though damaged, spoke of wealth and importance. A small crown-like device rested on her head. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that shimmered like opals. She tried to speak, but could barely whisper. "It's okay," Jack said softly, preparing an emergency medical shot from his kit. "I'm here to help. I'm human, from Earth. My name is Jack." Her eyes widened at the word human, but she was too weak to respond. The ship's structure groaned around them. The damage was getting worse. "My ship is docked outside. Can you move?" She tried to stand but collapsed. Without hesitation, Jack scooped her up in his arms. She was surprisingly light, almost fragile. Alarms began blaring throughout the vessel. "Warning: hull integrity failing. Structural collapse imminent," his computer announced. Jack ran back through the corridors, carefully protecting his precious cargo. They barely made it through the airlock before the Imperial ship's hull began breaking apart. Safe inside the Star Wanderer, Jack placed her gently on his medical bed. As he prepared proper medical treatment, she caught his hand weakly. "Thank you," she whispered, before falling unconscious. Jack looked at her peaceful face and sighed. He had just broken about 50 space laws and would probably be hunted by the Imperial forces. But watching her chest rise and fall with steady breaths, he knew he'd made the right choice. He didn't know it yet, but this moment would change not just his life, but the entire galaxy's view of humanity forever. The Star Wanderer's medical bay hummed quietly as Jack checked the vital signs of his mysterious passenger. He had managed to stabilize her condition using the ship's basic medical supplies, but her biology was different enough from human to make him nervous about doing more. "Computer, what's her status?" Jack asked, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. "Patient stable but requires advanced medical care. Warning: Imperial transport vessels approaching. Estimated arrival time: 15 minutes. Jack's heart sank. He knew this would happen, but not so soon. He looked at the unconscious woman, her silver skin almost glowing under the medical bay lights. "Scan the approaching ships," he ordered. "Negative match for Imperial Guard signatures." The computer responded. "Ships match known pirate vessel configurations." That was even worse. Pirates knew the value of Imperial hostages. Jack's mind raced through options as he prepped the ship for emergency maneuvers. A soft moan from the medical bed caught his attention. The woman was waking up, her opal eyes focusing slowly on her surroundings. "Easy there," Jack said gently. "You're safe, but we have a situation." She tried to sit up, wincing slightly. Where am I?" "You're on my cargo ship, the Star Wanderer. I found your damaged vessel and got you out just in time. I'm Jack, remember?" Her eyes widened with recognition. A human vessel. She looked around with curiosity despite their dire situation. So simple, yet she touched the medical monitor. Functional. "We've got company coming," Jack said. "Pirates. They probably picked up your ship's distress signal." The woman's face hardened. "Pirates dare to hunt Imperial property." Her voice carried authority despite her weakness. "I am Aurora, First Princess of the Stellar Empire. This is unacceptable." "Your Highness," Jack said, trying to stay calm. "Right now, they're hunting a small cargo ship with a damaged power signature. They don't know you're here, and I'd like to keep it that way." A warning alarm blared. "Pirates launching targeting scanners," the computer announced. "Can you walk?" Jack asked Aurora. When she nodded, he helped her to the bridge. "I need you to strap in. This might get rough." Aurora watched as Jack took the pilot's seat, his hands moving confidently over the controls. 3 sleek, predatory ships appeared on the main screen, their weapons charging. "Surrender your cargo and prepare for boarding," a harsh voice commanded over the comm. Jack smiled grimly. "Computer, dump our cargo containers but keep them linked to our systems." "What are you doing?" Aurora asked, fascinated despite their danger. "Something very human," Jack replied. He pushed the engines to full power, heading straight for a nearby asteroid field. The cargo containers trailed behind them like a metal tail. The pirates followed, their superior ships quickly gaining ground. Just as they were about to enter weapons range, Jack activated his plan. "Computer, detonate the emergency thrusters on all cargo containers." Now. The containers exploded into motion, their emergency systems firing in random directions. They bounced off asteroids and each other, creating a chaotic web of moving metal and debris. 2 pirate ships had to break off pursuit to avoid collisions. The third wasn't quick enough. A container clipped its wing, sending it spinning. "That was primitive," Aurora said, but her voice held admiration. "Using cargo containers as weapons. Sometimes the simple solutions work best," Jack replied, expertly weaving through the asteroid field. "We humans learned a long time ago that fancy technology isn't everything." For the next hour, Jack used every trick he knew, hiding in asteroid shadows, using mineral deposits to mask their engine signature, and constantly changing course. Finally, the computer confirmed they had lost their pursuers. Aurora watched him with growing interest. "You risk much to help me, human." "Why?" Jack shrugged, checking their new course. "Because it was right. Because you needed help. That's all the reason any human needs." Aurora sat quietly for a moment. My people call humans primitive, underdeveloped. Yet you saved me when our most advanced systems failed. Perhaps, perhaps we have much to learn." Little did either of them know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. The Star Wanderer drifted in the shadow of a small moon, its systems running on minimal power to avoid detection. Inside, Jack was teaching Princess Aurora how to make something she had never encountered before: a simple cup of hot chocolate. "In all the Empire's grand feasts," Aurora said, watching the steam rise from her cup, "I've never seen anything quite like this." She took a careful sip, her opal eyes widening. "It's wonderful." Jack smiled, enjoying his own cup. Sometimes the best things in life are the simplest. Over the past few days, they had fallen into an unexpected routine. Aurora was fascinated by everything human, from Jack's collection of old books to the way he hummed while checking the engine systems. "Tell me more about Earth," she requested, curling up in the co-pilot's chair. "Your world sounds so different from the Imperial planets." Jack looked out at the stars. "Earth isn't perfect. We've got our problems, just like everyone else. But there's something special about it. The way the oceans look at sunset, the sound of rain on a roof, the feeling of grass under your feet." "Grass?" Aurora asked. Jack laughed. "Right, you probably have synthetic surfaces everywhere. Grass is this living green plant that covers the ground. When I was a kid, I used to lay in it for hours, watching clouds go by." Aurora's face softened. "You speak of simple things with such joy. In the Imperial Court, everything is about power, protocol, and appearance. We've engineered all the unpredictability out of our lives." She paused. "I think we've lost something important in the process." A comfortable silence fell between them. Jack checked their navigation charts while Aurora studied his face, noting how his eyes crinkled when he concentrated. "Jack," she said suddenly, "would you teach me how to pilot your ship?" He looked surprised. "Isn't that beneath your royal status?" "I'm beginning to question many things about my status," she replied. "Your human ways. They're different, but they feel more real somehow." Over the next few hours, Jack taught her the basics of manual piloting. She was a quick learner, her elegant fingers soon dancing across the controls with growing confidence. "You're a natural," Jack said as she successfully navigated around a small asteroid. "It feels free," Aurora replied. "In the Empire, everything is automated. We just input destinations, and the computers do the rest. This, actually flying, it's exhilarating." Their lesson was interrupted by the ship's computer. "Warning. Imperial broadcast detected." The screen filled with Aurora's image and a message: "Imperial reward offered for information leading to the recovery of First Princess Aurora. Warning. Suspected kidnapper is a human male operating a cargo vessel. Considered armed and dangerous." Aurora's face fell. "They think you kidnapped me, but you saved my life." "It's okay," Jack said, though they both knew it wasn't. "The Empire doesn't exactly have a high opinion of humans." "It's not okay." Aurora stood up, angry now. "My people's arrogance has blinded them. They see humans as primitive because you haven't developed faster-than-light travel or neural interfaces. But in the days I've spent here, I've learned more about real strength, courage, and wisdom than in all my years in the Imperial Court." Jack watched her pacing, struck by how different she was from the half-dead princess he'd rescued. There was color in her silver cheeks now, and her movements had lost their rigid formality. "You know," he said softly, "for what it's worth, these past few days have taught me something too. Your people might have amazing technology, but you're not so different from us deep down. You laugh, you learn, you feel wonder at new things." Aurora stopped pacing and looked at him, really looked at him. "Perhaps that's the greatest lesson here. Under all our differences, there's something that connects us all." The moment was broken by another alarm. A large ship had just appeared on their sensors. "Imperial cruiser detected," the computer announced. preparing for scan. Their time together was about to end, but both Jack and Aurora knew that something had changed, not just between them, but in their understanding of what truly mattered in the vast expanse of space. The Imperial cruiser's tractor beam held the Star Wanderer firmly in its grip. Through the view screen, Jack and Aurora watched as heavily armed troops prepared to board. "Let me explain to them," Aurora pleaded. "I'll tell them you saved me." Jack shook his head. "They won't believe you." "Not yet. Your life is what matters now. You need to return to your people." The airlock hissed open. Imperial guards in gleaming armor stormed the bridge, their weapons trained on Jack. Their captain, a tall figure with golden skin, stepped forward. "First, Princess Aurora." He bowed deeply. "We've been searching the galaxy for you." His eyes narrowed at Jack. "Arrest the human kidnapper." "No." Aurora stepped between them. "Captain Reed, you don't understand. This human saved my..." "Princess," Reed cut her off. "You've clearly been traumatized. The human will face Imperial justice for his crimes." Two guards grabbed Jack's arms. He didn't resist, maintaining his dignity even as they snapped restraints around his wrists. "Protocol demands that the princess be isolated from her kidnapper," Reed announced, "for her mental and physical recovery." Aurora tried to speak again, but Imperial medical staff surrounded her, already beginning treatment and evaluation. She caught one last glimpse of Jack as they led him away. His eyes held no anger, only quiet acceptance and something else: concern for her. The next few hours passed in a blur. Aurora found herself swept into the familiar, but now strangely hollow routines of Imperial protocol. Medical scans, formal debriefings, proper clothing, and endless questions about her ordeal. Through it all, she kept trying to tell them the truth. But each time she mentioned Jack's heroism, they nodded sympathetically and made notes about Stockholm Syndrome and primitive psychological manipulation. 3 days later, she stood before the Imperial Security Council. Jack was brought in, still wearing his simple cargo pilot's uniform, though now wrinkled from days in a cell. The human stands accused of kidnapping a member of the Imperial family, the Chief Justice announced. "How does the accused plead?" Jack stood straight, his voice clear. "I plead innocent. I found a damaged ship and saved its occupant, as any human would do." "Lies," shouted one council member. "Your primitive vessel was found with Imperial property." "The council will hear character testimony," the Chief Justice declared. "First, Princess Aurora, you may speak of your captivity." Aurora stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Honored Council, I wish to testify that this human..." "The princess will not be called to testify," interrupted her father's advisor, Lord Vale. "Medical experts have certified she is still suffering from the psychological effects of her captivity. She must be protected from further trauma." Aurora watched in helpless fury as they led Jack away. His sentence: life imprisonment in the Imperial detention facility on Frost Moon. As they took him past her, Jack paused for just a moment. "Stay strong, Aurora," he whispered. "Remember what you learned." Silence, prisoner. A guard struck him, but Jack didn't flinch. That evening, alone in her royal chambers, Aurora stood at her window, looking at the stars. Everything around her was perfect: climate-controlled air, automatically adjusting lights, servants anticipating her every need. Yet she had never felt more trapped. She thought of Jack's small ship, of hot chocolate and manual piloting lessons, of conversations about Earth's oceans and grass. She thought of his courage, facing imprisonment without bitterness. "I will not forget," she whispered to the stars. "I will not let them bury the truth." But years would pass before she could keep that promise. Years in which Jack would sit in his cold cell, helping fellow prisoners find hope, never losing his humanity despite everything. Years in which Aurora would grow from a princess who questioned to an heir who planned. They thought they were separating them forever. Instead, they had planted seeds of change that would grow to shake the foundations of the empire itself. For now, though, Two souls who had glimpsed a better way looked up at the same stars from very different places, holding on to the truth they had discovered together. 5 years had changed much in the imperial palace. The grand halls that once echoed with courtiers' whispers now fell silent as Empress Aurora passed. Her father's death 3 months ago had left her with absolute power over the largest empire in known space. She stood before her mirror, removing the ornate crown that marked her status. Today was not about being an empress. Today was about keeping a promise. Your Majesty, her most trusted advisor, Lady Thea, entered with a datapad. We've located him. Aurora's hands trembled slightly. Where? Still in the Frost Moon facility. He's become something of a legend there. Thea's voice held surprise. Reports show he's been teaching other prisoners to read, helping them cope with isolation, even treating their injuries with basic medical knowledge. Of course he has. Aurora smiled softly. That's who he is. The journey to Frost Moon was quick in her personal starship. The prison governor nearly fainted when her vessel landed unannounced. He scrambled to organize a proper welcome, but Aurora waved aside the formalities. Take me to prisoner 247, she commanded. Your Majesty, the governor stuttered. Surely you don't want to visit the detention levels personally. The human prisoner is. The human prisoner, Aurora cut him off, is the reason I'm alive to stand here today. Take me to him. Now. The detention levels were cold and gray, designed to break spirits. But as they walked deeper into the facility, Aurora noticed something strange. Prisoners stood straighter when they passed Jack's cell block. There was less despair in their eyes. They found him in the prison's small medical bay, teaching another inmate how to properly bandage a wound. 5 years had added some gray to his hair, but his eyes were the same, kind, steady, undefeated. He looked up as they entered. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by a warm smile that made Aurora's heart ache. Hello, Jack, she said softly. Your Majesty, he bowed slightly, still smiling. You look well, though I hope you haven't given up hot chocolate entirely. A laugh bubbled up from her throat, surprising the watching guards. Never. You taught me too well for that. The prison governor cleared his throat nervously. Your Majesty, protocol requires. Protocol, Aurora said firmly, is about to change. She turned to Jack. I've spent 5 years gathering evidence, building support, and waiting for the right moment. I'm here to correct a grave injustice. She gestured to Lady Thea, who stepped forward with an official document. By imperial decree, Jack Miller is hereby pardoned of all charges. Furthermore, he is to be recognized as an imperial savior, with all rights and honors thereof. The guard's jaws dropped. The prison governor made a choking sound, but Jack just looked at Aurora with understanding in his eyes. You didn't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, I did. Aurora's voice was equally soft. My first act as Empress had to be this, setting right what was wrong. It's what you taught me about human justice. As they walked out of the prison together, Aurora noticed Jack stopping to say goodbye to other prisoners, giving them words of encouragement. Even now, he thought of others first. Your private quarters have been prepared on my ship, she told him as they reached the landing pad. Unless you prefer to return to Earth. Jack looked at the stars above them. Actually, I was thinking I might stick around for a while. Seems like the Empire might be entering an interesting time of change. Aurora smiled. It certainly is. I have plans that will shock the Imperial Court to its core. I could use someone with experience in thinking differently. Is that a job offer from an empress? It's a request from someone who learned her most important lessons about leadership from a cargo pilot with a taste for hot chocolate. They boarded her ship together, leaving behind a prison full of whispered stories about the human who never lost hope and the empress who hadn't forgotten him. The galaxy was about to learn just how powerful those stories could be. The Imperial Grand Hall buzzed with tension. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the ancient chamber, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic civilization. They had been summoned by the new Empress for what was promised to be a historic announcement. Jack stood quietly to one side of the massive throne, dressed in a simple but elegant uniform that marked him as an imperial advisor. The whispers and glares directed his way didn't bother him. He had faced worse. Empress Aurora entered, and the hall fell silent. She wore traditional imperial robes, but those who knew her well noticed small changes. The fabric was simpler, more practical, and she had foregone the floating crown in favor of a slim circlet. "Representatives of the Empire," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, "I stand before you today, not just as your Empress, but as someone who has seen the truth our pride has hidden from us." She gestured to Jack. "5 years ago, this human saved my life. Not because of duty or reward, but because it was right. In the days that followed, while our mighty empire searched in the wrong direction, he taught me things we have forgotten in our rush to advance." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some delegates looked uncomfortable, others curious. "We call humans primitive," Aurora continued. "We mock their shorter lives, their limited technology, their attachment to physical experiences. Yet in our arrogance, we have lost something they still possess: the ability to see beyond systems and protocols to the heart of what matters." She walked down the steps from her throne, moving among the delegates. "In our pursuit of perfection, we have engineered the joy out of our lives. We have replaced compassion with protocol. We have forgotten how to truly live." An elder delegate stood up. "Your Majesty, surely you cannot suggest we lower ourselves to human standards. They haven't even mastered faster-than-light travel without using our gates. Lower ourselves." Aurora's voice sharpened. "Let me tell you what I saw in my time among humans. I saw strength that had nothing to do with technology. I saw wisdom that came from embracing life's imperfections rather than trying to eliminate them." She reached the center of the hall. "Therefore, as my first major act as Empress, I am announcing a new alliance. Earth will be granted full imperial partnership status, with all rights and privileges thereof." The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted protests, others demanded explanations. Aurora waited calmly until the noise died down. "Furthermore," she continued, "I am establishing the new Imperial Council of Human Wisdom. They will help us remember what we have forgotten: the value of emotion, the strength in imperfection, the power of simple kindness." Jack watched as she handled the protests and questions that followed. She had grown so much from the formal princess he had first rescued, yet had kept the wonder and warmth she had discovered during their time together. "Your Majesty," one delegate asked, "how can you trust these humans? They are unpredictable, emotional." "Exactly," Aurora smiled. "That is their strength. While we hide behind protocols, they face life directly. While we seek to eliminate uncertainty, they learn to adapt to it. Their primitive qualities are exactly what we need." She looked at Jack, then back to the assembly. "I have seen a human risk everything to save a stranger. I have seen one man with limited resources show more ingenuity than our most advanced systems. If that is primitive, then perhaps we need to redefine what we consider advanced." The hall had fallen silent again, but this time it was different. Some delegates were nodding thoughtfully. Others were whispering among themselves with considering looks. "The galaxy is changing," Aurora concluded. "We can either embrace new wisdom or be left behind in our outdated pride. The choice is yours, but as your Empress, I have made mine." She returned to her throne, leaving the assembly to digest her words. A new era was beginning, and its seeds had been planted in the most unlikely place, aboard a small human cargo ship, over cups of hot chocolate. 1 year after Aurora's shocking declaration, the Imperial Palace garden had changed dramatically. Real grass covered the ground where synthetic surfaces once lay. The air filled with the sound of running water from a natural fountain, and actual earth flowers bloomed alongside alien plants. Jack sat on a simple bench, watching delegates from Earth and various imperial worlds walk the garden paths together. Some were deep in conversation. others simply enjoying the peace of this new space. "Your garden project is quite a success," Aurora said, joining him on the bench. She had made it a habit to spend time here without her royal guards, dressed in comfortable clothes rather than formal robes. "It's amazing what a little Earth-style nature can do," Jack replied, "though I never expected it to become the most popular meeting spot for interstellar diplomacy." The changes went far beyond the garden. Throughout the Empire, worlds were discovering the value of what they had once dismissed as primitive. Human medical techniques that focused on healing the whole person, not just the body, were revolutionizing imperial healthcare. Earth's entertainment and art were spreading rapidly, bringing color to worlds that had forgotten how to feel deeply. The Trading Federation reports that demand for human goods has increased by 300%, Aurora said, smiling, especially for something called ice cream. Jack laughed. "Wait until they discover pizza." Their conversation was interrupted by a young imperial child who ran up to them, her silver skin glowing with excitement. "Ambassador Jack, will you tell us another Earth story?" They looked over to see a group of children, human and imperial mixed together, sitting on the grass nearby. This too was a change. Imperial children had once spent their days in structured learning pods. Now they were encouraged to play, to imagine, to simply be young. "Go on," Aurora nudged him. "They love your stories." Jack joined the children, sitting cross-legged on the grass. "Have I told you about the ancient Earth legend of Robin Hood?" As he began the tale, Aurora watched more people gather to listen. Adult delegates paused their walks to hear about the human hero who fought for justice. The story sparked discussions about fairness, courage, and standing up for what's right, concepts that were reshaping imperial law. Later that evening, Aurora and Jack stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. The strict geometric patterns of imperial architecture were now softened by gardens and parks, creating a more welcoming landscape. "Sometimes I can hardly believe how much has changed," Aurora said. "Representatives from worlds that once looked down on humans now regularly seek Earth's counsel. And humans have learned plenty too," Jack added. "Your technology has helped us solve some of our biggest problems. Turns out we all had something to teach each other." A group of young imperial officers passed below, laughing at something their human colleague had said. The rigid formality that once defined imperial society was giving way to a more balanced approach, one that valued both advanced technology and basic human wisdom. "You know," Aurora said thoughtfully, "when you rescued me that day, you didn't just save my life. You showed me a different way to live. Now that way is spreading across the galaxy." Jack nodded. "That's the funny thing about humans. We may not have the most advanced technology or the longest lives, but we never stop hoping, never stop trying to make things better." "That's exactly what the galaxy needed," Aurora replied. "Hope, the courage to change, the wisdom to see that progress isn't just about technology." As night fell over the capital, lights began to twinkle, not just the perfect, programmed illumination of before, but warm, slightly uneven lights that made the city feel alive. Somewhere in the distance, music played, a fusion of human and imperial styles that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The revolution wasn't fought with weapons or won with force. It was a revolution of hearts and minds, sparked by a simple act of kindness between two people from very different worlds. It proved that sometimes the greatest changes start with the smallest choices, like stopping to help a stranger or being willing to learn from those we once thought beneath us. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.